From the Middle East, where we have been trying all week to get Christians out of Kabul. I can't give you an update today. Things have been so chaotic since last night. Last word, we had 5,100 Christians and refugees out. We're in another phase, kind of looking for a land bridge. But there are other people that are trapped at the airport, not on the tarmac. I think we have cleared all those. We have repositioned the airplanes that have been working for the Nazarene Fund. And I have to tell you, the teamwork on the ground is absolutely phenomenal. It is, I want to make it really, really clear that it is not just us that is doing all of this by any stretch of the imagination. We are working with so many different groups, and I will talk about that a little later on and how you can help. But I just want to super shout out to President Joe Biden, who is the worst president. And he may, if you've listened to this program, I hate Woodrow Wilson. Hate him with all the intensity of a white-hot sun. Maybe, as Pat would say, 1,000 white-hot suns. I think that Joe Biden may surpass him as the worst president of all time. Last night in the speech, I want to go over just a couple of things. First, let's start with his message to ISIS-K.
To those who carried out this attack, as well as anyone who wishes America harm, know this: we will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
Okay, all right. Okay, stop. I have a couple of questions. We'll never forgive. Great Christian message there for you. But he wants to talk about ISIS-K, not the Taliban, because of course the Taliban, they're helping us. And their big enemy is, ISIS-K. It's like Special K, but it doesn't come in a box. Wish it did. If I were president, all of them would be coming in a box. But ISIS-K is against the Taliban, and the Taliban has been protecting us. Bull frickin' crap. That is not true. You are going to hear this bull crap that ISIS is against the Taliban, and the Taliban is so nice and they're just trying to protect us and they're guarding the gate. That's bull crap. All of that is PR bull crap. These guys do hate each other. But have you heard an idea in the Middle East called the enemy of my enemy is my friend? They'll try to blow each other up very soon. But first, they want to kill and humiliate us. So don't even start with this was ISIS-K, because you don't know who it was. And by the way, let's say it was. There were three Taliban checkpoints before you got to the main gate where our checkpoint was. Is the Taliban, they're so super good, they're so reliable and so good and so able to beat us, but they couldn't recognize suicide bombs when they saw them through 3 separate checkpoints? Now the last point on this one. We're going to hunt you down, and we're going to make you pay. Well, maybe that's true after we ship them probably $1 billion on the airport and just leave it there like we did with Iran. But how are we going to hunt them down? Joe, how are we going to do that? And this is kind of an interesting one because people are, we'll just bomb them. We'll just have a drone up in the sky and we'll just drone them to death. Will we? Well, first of all, let's just remind you that they now have more Blackhawks, the Taliban has more Blackhawks than 85% of the world. Don't worry about it. They're cave dwellers with Blackhawks. Now, the second thing, usually you need some sort of an intelligence network to be able to find out on the ground who did it. Unless we're just gonna take the Taliban's word for it, because I know they're so trustworthy. We have no connections on the ground. If we did, none of them trust us anymore. None of them would ever work with us. We probably actually made people want to help the Taliban and blow us up the way we have betrayed them. There won't be a Middle Eastern contact for as far as the eye can see. So what intelligence network are you gonna use, Joe, to find out who did that and where they are? This guy is a moron, a moron. When a guy like me can figure this out, you are a special kind of moron. Now, let's go to cut to the military recommended something.
Did you personally reject a recommendation to hold or to recapture Bagram Air Force Base?
Here's what I've done on the, let's answer the last question first. On the tactical questions of how to conduct an evacuation or a war, I gather up all the major military personnel that are in Afghanistan, the commanders, as well as the Pentagon. And I ask for their best military judgment. What would be the most efficient way to accomplish the mission? They concluded, the military, that Bagram was not much value added, that it was much wiser to focus on Kabul.
Wow.
And so I followed that recommendation.
Stop. Remember, he takes full responsibility, but he asked the Pentagon, how do we do it? He said earlier in the speech, I asked them 3 times today if they needed something, and they said no. Oh, well, that's taking full responsibility for it. I take full responsibility. I asked them, and they said they didn't need my help at all. They didn't want anything else. Does that include them saying, this is a colossally bad idea, we shouldn't do it, Mr. President, and then you saying, no, but we're going to do it anyway? Okay, what's it gonna take? Well, I don't know, because this is gonna be a disaster. But the good thing is, we have a huge air base there in the country that we could use for air support. No. Instead, the Pentagon said,
what do you say we get rid of the air base? There's no use for an air base here. There's no strategic value for this air base. That's why when we first started the war, we built that gigantic air base, because there was no strategic use for it at all.
When will the Pentagon stand up and say, that's bullcrap? Now, maybe the people running the Pentagon are that stupid, but the military's certainly not. Let me ask a Marine friend of mine, Jason Buttrill, who is here with me in the Middle East, because all of us watching last night almost burst a blood vessel when we saw him say certain things. Your thoughts, Jason, on the president just heeding the advice of the generals and the Pentagon and saying, yeah, there's no strategic use for us to have that airbase?
Well, for one, I thought that he was just following Trump's plan. So I thought all these plans were already drawn up by the Trump people, so why are they even discussing altering it in the first place? That's for one, so this is a total shock to me for that. 2, there's just absolutely no way the military would have said, hey, let's just abandon Bagram Air Base before we finish the full evacuation.
Why would anyone in their right mind do that? You don't take assets off the table.
Yeah.
You just to cover your own ass. You're like, no, let's just leave that alone. We'll take those guys out last. Just to cover your own ass, you do that.
Right, and just for like geographical reference, Bagram Air Base is right above Kabul, so it's within striking distance of Kabul. So if you are going to, let's say, ferry troops back and forth, if you need to put troops, let's say by some wild stretch of the imagination that you botched the withdrawal. And, the Taliban rolled into Kabul last minute and no one thought that did happen. Okay. Well, then no worries because you have Bagram Air Base there because then you can pull in additional assets to secure the area. But they abandoned Bagram Air Base. Mm-hmm. So none of this from a military strategic, perspective makes any sense whatsoever. So what does that tell you? It was all political. So politics has been driving this evacuation from day one. In a situation like this, in a military situation like this, the situation drives your timeline. Now, the Biden administration has been doing it exactly the opposite way. The timeline has been driving the situation, which makes no sense whatsoever. They're looking at their timeline to say, we're going to make our decisions based off of this, and this. No, in any other military situation, period, you're looking at the situation and you're adjusting your timeline off of that. None of this makes sense whatsoever.
You want to see somebody that was honorable on taking responsibility. That would be Eisenhower and, quite honestly, George W. Bush. George W. Bush took the heat. I was in his office when he called me and actually he didn't, but his people called me. I said, you want something to impeach this president over? We were talking about the border. This is where you find something impeachable of this president. And that night driving home from CNN, I'll never forget, I'm driving, I pick up the cell phone, it's a 212 number, and or 202 number, and they say, I pick it up, Mr. Beck, the president would like to see you in the Oval on Thursday, and at 11 o'clock, and I didn't know what to do. I was just like, okay, let me check. And I just held the phone out away from my face, like, what the hell, what do I, okay, I'm good. And so I went, and he was a different person than you saw on television. He knew the names of everybody who had been killed or injured that he had personally called that morning. And it was around 11 o'clock, 11:30 when he told the story, and he was crystal clear on the name. He said the names of the people he called. And he talked about assets that we had in the war, blah, 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 blah. And I said to him, no offense, Mr. President, but this is the guy that we need to see on television. And he said, you can't, blah, 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 blah. But the point of this story is that he said to me, it's my decision. I told the military, you have whatever you want. We're not going to do this Vietnam style. So I will take the heat. And they said to me, fine, just please don't make the death toll numbers coming from the White House all the time, because that's what killed us last time. And he said, fine, I won't. And he said, there are so many times that I want to tell the American people good news, but I can't. And I know I'm going to look bad, maybe for the next 50 years, but I'm going to take the responsibility because I made that promise. That's taking responsibility. This guy is, no, I told them what I wanted to do, and then they did it, and look how it's turning out, which, by the way, in the same breath, I'm going to say is fantastic. And I should be praised for how it's turned out. It's just the military, Donald Trump, and anybody else's fault, not mine.